Jimmy Garoppolo, will he be fine week 1 through week 18? He's the guy that we have that graphic that almost needs a second page from all the injuries he's had dating back to tearing his ACL week 3 of the 2018 season in Kansas City. He led the Raiders on a touchdown drive in his preseason debut. 9 plays, 68 yards, 7-yard touchdown run by Brandon Bolden to cap it. Jimmy was 4 for 4 for 39 yards. It was the first time he'd played since even earlier than Tua Tagovailoa. It was 3 weeks earlier that Garoppolo had suffered that foot injury that resulted in him missing the rest of the year, failing his physical with the Raiders, having surgery, questions about whether or not he'd be good to go. Looks good so far in that game against the LA Rams, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. Like a Brock Purdy for Shanahan, Garoppolo for Josh McDaniels, same thing. Just, hey, or run the offense. I'm going to give you a ton of answers. If you could sit in the pocket here and read it the right way, people will be open. You just got to hit the open guy. He looked good the other night. He did. I'm interested to see how it all plays out there. There was no Devontae Adams in the lineup. They didn't play a lot of their starting receivers. They didn't even play their starting tackles. The other thing, too, that was kind of encouraging there, and again, we've talked about it. I don't think the Rams are going to be very good, right? But damn, the Raiders, their O-line. I mean, I know it was the Rams' second team D, but they just steamrolled the Rams on that way. So I mean, on the defensive line there. And Zamir White looks really good, which is why I want to go, hey, Josh Jacobs, please get back. I mean, Zamir White's going to run for 1,000 yards and behind that O-line. And it's just not going to look good for you. Come back and get your money. But either way, good start for Jimmy G. I'm sure even for a guy like him who's played as much as he had, he's probably a little nervous, wants to feel the foot, feel the movement of the game, and he looked good.
It's been 2.5 weeks since we were in Canton.
Yeah.
And for our pregame show in advance of the Jets-Browns game, I did some reporting on the Josh Jacobs situation. And since then,
nothing, right?
There's been nothing.
Yeah.
There's been no report. There's been no news. There's been nothing. The only time his name's come up is after the Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook deals last Monday. We both said, hey, Josh, go get that 10-1.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea to go get that 10-1. Elliott signed him for up to 6, and Dalvin Cook's got this funky contract that protects the Jets that may not be anything close to what he was hoping to get in the grand scheme of things. 10-1. And here we are, 20 days now from the Week 1 game that the Raiders play against the Denver Broncos. And there's nothing. And 2 weeks from now, as we get into the final days in advance of the game.
Yeah, that's when they'll think about it.
That's when I'm going to be paying attention for the news.
Right.
For the Raiders to yank the franchise tender. And the stuff you're saying, offensive line looks good, Zamir White looks good, and maybe it's just a case of the GM Dave Ziegler and the head coach Josh McDaniels hoping that they get a phone call one morning after Mark Davis rolls out of bed and says, why do we have $10.1 million tied up in one guy? How much better is he going to make us at this point? Why don't we reclaim the 10-1, spend it on other guys, or save it for next year? But why are we going to keep that money out on the table for a guy that may not help us make a difference, especially if he's walking through the door cold just 2 or 3 days before Week 1? I have felt, and I know the people who cover the Raiders, and that's all bullcrap and fake news and whatever other pejoratives they want to throw. I've just felt for a while now that this is the end game. And it's not something that they can do in March or April. They had to apply the tag. They had to go through the motions. They had to act like they were trying to sign into a long-term deal. And now, at the right time, at the right moment, that tag goes away. I mean, what urgency have we seen? What urgency have we heard from the Raiders to get him to show up? Chris, I think it's just I could be wrong, and trust me, I've been wrong enough times that it doesn't bother me anymore. But I am not going to be surprised at all if they take that money back and they make Josh Jacobs a free agent. And then things get real interesting, because where would Josh Jacobs land? We're getting ahead of ourselves, but keep an eye on it, because until he shows up, until he says, I'll take the 10-1, that possibility lingers that the Raiders say, we don't really need to spend 10-1 on Josh Jacobs. And I'm surprised, frankly, they haven't come to that conclusion yet.
I think it's fair to connect those dots. I don't care how many people yell and holler at you. I think it's perfectly respectable to have that kind of thought and think that, ooh, that could happen. with a team that we know does not value the position maybe as other teams, that's always been, a part of an organization that had a stable of running backs. And, McDaniels, Belichick, whatever, they don't like to overspend on anything. So that it will be something to watch for here. And then the last thing I want to just say about it is, Josh Jacobs, please go in to the facility and sign the damn contract. What are you doing right now? No, you're not changing the game. Nobody's like going, oh man, running back market's got to change. Look, Josh Jacobs isn't in a camp. He's not here. Man, he's really making a point. Man, the league's not the same. Come on, Josh Jacobs. You're truly only hurting yourself right now. I love where your heart is at. The cause is real. It's just not going to affect anything. Get in there, get your money. Right? If they take away this damn franchise tag, yeah, you might get to go to a better football team. You might get to go to the Chiefs or the Broncos or the Chargers, who knows, and stick it to the Raiders. But are they going to pay you $10 million? I don't know about that. I would doubt it, actually. So that's where I think we both want him in there.
Dalvin Cook had the very wise comments last week. At a certain point, the running back just has to go play. At a certain point, there's nothing else you can do except go play and hope for the best on the back end. Before we wrap, here's Jimmy Garoppolo talking about his first game action since early December of 2022.
Felt good, just knock some of the rust off, getting the game flow with some of the guys. It's little things like that right now that we're trying to work on, and I thought the guys played well tonight. Yeah, I wanted to play, so glad Josh, let the starters get out there and get a couple reps in. And I thought the line played great. I thought guys were just operating at a fast pace, which is important in this offense, and I thought it was overall pretty good.
So again, off the Raiders go. They have the Broncos week 1 of the regular season, and week 1, there's always great games, and we'll take whatever we can get because we've been waiting for real games for so long. But that one, we got to figure out how that bottom of the AFC West and who's going to maybe rise up and challenge the Chargers and the Chiefs, and it's an early indication. And I know things will change after that, but it's an early indication as to which of those two teams is maybe going to be in a position to disrupt the top of that division, if either.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's. I think we know Kansas City, but it's like, can Denver and Sean Payton and Russell Wilson really make a mark here? Can the Chargers turn the corner and stay healthy and be consistent all year and actually be a team that, instead of just trying to barely get in the playoffs, be a real powerhouse? I think we both agree their roster is worthy of that, but we just got to see them put it together. Yeah, there's questions in that AFC West with the other three teams, potential too, which I think makes it fun and of course makes the AFC crazy as ever.
There's several games like that week 1 where we get an early idea of where a couple of teams, middle of the pack-ish, where they're going to be, how it's going to break. And it's still way too early because teams will get better and teams will get worse. But those outcomes in week 1 are relevant to the standings and relevant to the tiebreakers. Same time that the Raiders and Broncos are playing that week 1, Packers and Bears are playing. Same idea.
Yeah.
So, not that we need to sell week 1 because everybody's excited for week 1, but I'm looking at some of these games and it's,
yeah.
There's no game I wouldn't watch, largely because it's week 1, but we start learning about these teams we've been talking so much about. We get to see what's going to happen when they go out and play, realizing that, you could win week 1 and you could lose the rest of them, or you could lose week 1 and you could win the rest of them. Regardless, week 1 is week 1, and it's amazing to think it starts in 17 days and we'll be there in Kansas City when we find out whether or not the Lions are just a bunch of hot air and nothing.
Paper champs.
If they can go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, yeah.
Right, yeah.
I still don't know why the Jaguars aren't getting more buzz. Like the Jaguars, we talked about this last week. We got the countdown clock. Boom. Have I finally figured it out? Did I go the right way?
You got it the right way.
Did I go the right way?
Right.
I did. The Jaguars did more than the Lions last year. They made it to the playoffs. They won a playoff game. I understand they're in the more difficult conference, but the Jaguars have done much more than the Lions. If we want to throw in 2017 as well, the Jaguars at least have a recent history of something. The Lions haven't won a playoff game since 1991. I just think it's too much pressure, and the expectations are too high, and maybe they'll wear it well. But we're going to find out. I mean, if the Chiefs win that game 38-13, we're going to feel differently about the Lions the next morning.
Yeah, it is. And there's a part of me that wouldn't be shocked that if Kansas City did beat them like that. And not to say that really dictates how the rest of the year goes, but like you said, the pressure, that moment, first game, dealing with that team that we know is they're playing their starters and, oh yeah, Patty Mahomes and company are ready to go. They're going to be ready to go week 1. But I think we saw the offense and we saw them at the end of last year certainly come on and get hot down the stretch and beat teams that were looked at. They beat the Vikings late in the year. They, beat the Jets, who I know didn't go to the playoffs but are very talented. Beat the Packers twice. Beat the Giants once. We're in a game with the Buffalo Bills on Thanksgiving where Josh Allen had to make an amazing throw to win the game. So I think that's where it comes from. But still, to your point, yeah, Jacksonville should be getting more love than Detroit. I would agree with that.
But again, if you put Jacksonville in the NFC, maybe they would be.
Maybe that's
the reality.
Right.
And maybe it would be Jaguars, Eagles, 49ers as the 3 teams that are the class of the NFC if the Jaguars were assigned to that conference. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.